The wine had been flowing for 3 hours, and the laughter around our dining room table had that sharp, brittle edge that comes when married couples pretend everything's perfect. Monica was shuffling the cards for another round of poker, her manicured nails clicking against the plastic. Evan sat across from me, his designer shirt open one button too many, that smug grin never leaving his face. My wife Lila raised her glass, swirling the red liquid like she was conducting an orchestra. "You know what, everyone?" she said, her voice carrying that particular tone I'd learned to dread over our 7 years of marriage. "If I could turn back time, I'd never marry Garrett." The table erupted in nervous laughter. Monica nearly choked on her wine. Evan's grin widened, showing those perfect teeth his daddy's money had bought him. Our other friends, Jim and Rebecca from down the hall, shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. I set down my beer and looked at my wife, really looked at her. The woman I'd married was beautiful, no question about that. Blonde hair that caught the light just right, green eyes that could make a man forget his own name. But right now, those eyes held nothing but contempt. "Finally," I said, my voice steady as granite. "Something we agree on." The laughter stopped. Just like that. You could have heard a pin drop in our overpriced condo overlooking Portland's harbor. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope. Thick, heavy, full of secrets. "Garrett," Lila said, her voice suddenly uncertain. "What are you doing?" I opened the envelope and spread its contents across the mahogany table we'd bought during happier times. Screenshots, printed text messages, photos taken from a distance with a telephoto lens. Monica's face went white. Evan's perfect smile crumbled like a house of cards in a hurricane. "These are interesting," I said, picking up one of the printouts. "Especially this one from last Tuesday. Can't wait to feel you inside me again, baby. Garrett's working late at the marina." "That's your number, Lila, and that's Evan's phone receiving it." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Rebecca gasped. Jim muttered something under his breath. Lila's wine glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor. "Where did you get those?" Evan demanded, but his voice cracked like a teenager asking for his first date. I smiled. Not a nice smile. The kind of smile a shark gives a seal. "Oh, this is just the warm-up act," I said, gathering the papers back into a neat pile. "You'll want to stick around for the main event." 3 weeks earlier, I'd been the happiest fool in Maine. Garrett Harlan, age 42, former investigative journalist turned marina manager. I thought I had it all figured out. Beautiful wife with a successful career in public relations, nice home, comfortable life. Sure, we'd been having problems, but what married couple didn't? The first crack in my perfect world came on a Tuesday night in September. Lila came home at 11:30, claiming she'd been working late on the Henderson account. She smelled like expensive cologne, not the kind I wore. "How was your day, honey?" she asked, kissing my cheek with lips that tasted like lies. "Fine," I said, studying her face. "How's the Henderson project coming along?" "Oh, you know how it is. Demanding clients, impossible deadlines." She was already heading for the shower. I'm exhausted. The next morning, I called Henderson Industries, asked to speak with someone about their PR campaign. The receptionist was helpful. "Oh, we're not working with any PR firms right now," she said cheerfully. "Haven't been for 6 months." That's when the journalist in me woke up from its 7-year slumber. I started paying attention, really paying attention. Lila's late nights became more frequent. Her phone was always face down now, and she'd changed her passcode. She bought new underwear, the expensive kind she used to save for special occasions, but never wore it for me. The second week of my amateur investigation, I followed her. Felt ridiculous doing it, like some character in a bad detective novel. But there I was, sitting in my pickup truck outside her office building at 6:30 in the evening, watching her get into Evan Merrick's BMW. I knew Evan from company parties, Lila's co-worker, 5 years younger than me, with the kind of easy confidence that comes from never having to work for anything. His father owned 3 car dealerships. His mother played tennis at the country club. He'd never had to choose between paying rent or buying groceries. They drove to Rosario's, an Italian place on the other side of town. I sat in the parking lot for 2 hours, watching them through the window. The way she touched his hand. The way she threw her head back when she laughed. The way she looked at him like he was the answer to every question she'd ever had. When they left the restaurant, they didn't go back to their cars. Instead, they walked to the Sunset Motel 3 blocks away. I drove home and sat in our living room staring at the wedding photos on the mantel. 7 years. 7 years of my life with a woman who was playing house with another man in a $20 a night motel room. That's when I called Cap Pritchard. Captain, nobody used his first name, which was actually Melvin, had been my partner back when I was still chasing stories for the Portland Herald. He'd been a cop then, working homicide. Now he ran a small private investigation business out of a cramped office above Murphy's bait shop. "Garrett," he said when I walked into his office the next day, "you look like someone ran over your dog." Cap was 63 years old, built like a fire hydrant, and had the kind of weathered face that comes from 30 years of dealing with the worst humanity has to offer. He also had the most useful skill set of anyone I knew. "I need help," I said. "Your wife?" I shouldn't have been surprised he'd figured it out so quickly. Cap had always been able to read people like open books. "How'd you know?" "Married men don't usually come to see me when they're happy." "What's she doing?" I told him everything. The late nights, the lies, the motel. He listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes in a small leather notebook. "You want me to get proof," he said when I finished. "I want to know everything. How long it's been going on, if there are others, what they're planning." Cap leaned back in his chair, which creaked ominously under his weight. "This is going to hurt, you know. Whatever I find, it's going to hurt worse than what you already know." "I'm already hurting." "Fair enough. My rate is $50 an hour plus expenses. I'll need a retainer." I wrote him a check for $1,000. "One more thing," Cap said as I stood to leave. "What are you planning to do with whatever I find?" "I don't know yet." "Well, when you figure it out, make sure it's something you can live with. Revenge is like a loaded gun. It's just as likely to blow up in your face as it is to hit your target." Cap worked fast. Within a week, he had enough evidence to bury Lila and Evan both. Photos of them entering and leaving the motel. Credit card receipts showing Evan paying for romantic dinners while I was working late at the marina. Phone records that painted a picture of a relationship that had been going on for 4 months. But the real treasure was the audio recording. "How'd you get this?" I asked, staring at the small digital recorder Cap had placed on his desk. "Evan's got a convertible. Likes to drive with the top down. Amazing what you can pick up with a good directional microphone." He pressed play. Lila's voice clear as crystal. "We need to be more careful. Garrett's been asking questions." "Evan, about what?" "About my schedule, about work. He called Henderson Industries yesterday." "What did you tell him?" "Nothing yet, but we might need to speed up our timeline." "You mean about the divorce?" "About everything. The divorce, the money, getting him out of the marina job. My lawyer says if we can prove he's been unstable, maybe drinking too much, I can get more in the settlement." There was a pause. Then Evan's voice, sounding uncertain. "You want to frame him?" "I want to make sure he can't hurt us. He used to be a reporter, remember? He knows how to dig up dirt. We need to bury him before he buries us." "How?" "Monica has an idea. Something about making it look like he's been harassing women at work. A few complaints to the harbor master, maybe some planted evidence." Cap stopped the recording. "There's more, but you get the idea." I sat in silence for a long moment, processing what I'd just heard. My wife wasn't just cheating on me. She was planning to destroy my reputation, my career, maybe even my freedom. When was this recorded? 3 days ago. They were parked outside the marina, actually, probably watching you work. The irony wasn't lost on me. While I'd been managing boat slips and dealing with weekend sailors, my wife had been sitting 50 yards away, plotting my downfall. "What's your next move?" Cap asked. "I need to think." "Don't think too long. If they're planning to frame you for harassment, you need to get ahead of this." I stood up, pocketing the digital recorder. "Can you get me more? More recordings? More evidence?" "Probably. But Garrett..." Cap's voice was serious. "Whatever you're planning, be smart about it. Don't let anger make you stupid." I drove back to the marina and sat in my office, staring out at the boats bobbing in their slips. expensive toys for rich people who didn't have to worry about their wives plotting against them. The late afternoon sun painted the water gold, and for a moment I almost forgot about the recording in my pocket. Almost. My phone buzzed. A text from Lila. "Working late again tonight. Don't wait up." I texted back. "No problem. Love you." The lie tasted bitter even in text form. That evening, I drove to Murphy's Tavern, a dive bar near the waterfront that catered to fishermen, dock workers, and other people who earned their living with their hands. The owner, Jules Murphy, had been a friend since my newspaper days. She'd been a source for several stories about city corruption, and she had a memory, like a steel trap. "You look terrible," she said when I walked in. Jules was 50-something, with gray-streaked hair and arms like a longshoreman. She'd inherited the bar from her father and had been running it for 20 years. "I feel terrible." "Wife problems? How does everyone know?" "Honey, I've been serving drinks to miserable married men for 2 decades. You all have the same look." She poured me a beer without being asked. "Want to talk about it?" I told her everything. The affair, the recordings, the plan to frame me. Jules listened, occasionally nodding or making sympathetic noises. "That's rough," she said when I finished. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet, but I'm not going to just roll over and let them destroy me." "Good. A man's got to fight for what's his." She leaned across the bar, lowering her voice. "You know, I might be able to help you out." "How?" "Your wife's friend Monica comes in here sometimes, usually with different men, if you know what I mean. She drinks too much and talks too much. Might be worth having a conversation with her." "What kind of conversation?" Jules smiled. It wasn't a particularly nice smile. The kind where she realizes that loyalty is a two-way street. Monica Chen was Lila's best friend and closest confidant. They'd worked together at Hartwell and Associates for 3 years, and Monica had been the maid of honor at our wedding. She was also, as Jules had mentioned, a woman with flexible morals and expensive tastes. I found her at Murphy's the following Friday night, sitting alone at the end of the bar, nursing a Cosmopolitan and scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I approached, surprise flickering across her face. "Garrett? What are you doing here?" "Having a drink. Mind if I join you?" She gestured to the empty stool next to her. "Of course. Where's Lila tonight?" "Working late. Again." I ordered a beer and studied Monica's face. "Actually, I was hoping to talk to you about that." "About what?" "About Lila working so much. I'm worried about her." Monica's hand tightened slightly around her drink. "She's just, ambitious. The Henderson account is really demanding." "Funny thing about that," I said casually. "I called Henderson Industries yesterday. They're not working with any PR firms right now." Monica's face went pale. She took a large gulp of her Cosmopolitan. "Maybe I misunderstood," she said. "There are so many clients. It's hard to keep track." "I'm sure." I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the photos Cap had taken. Lila and Evan entering the Sunset Motel. "Recognize anyone?" Monica stared at the photo, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Garrett, I can explain." "I'm sure you can. The question is, do you want to explain it to me, or would you rather explain it to your boss when these photos end up on his desk?" "You wouldn't. Try me." Monica finished her drink in one gulp and signaled Jules for another. "What do you want?" "The truth, all of it. How long has this been going on? What are they planning? And what's your role in all of this?" For a moment, I thought she might try to lie her way out of it. But Monica had always been more of a follower than a leader, and when push came to shove, she looked out for herself first. "It started 4 months ago," she said quietly. "At the company retreat in Bar Harbor. They were both drinking, and one thing led to another. And you knew about it." I suspected. Then Lila told me a few weeks later. She said it was just physical, that it didn't mean anything. But it did mean something. Monica nodded. "She's in love with him. Says you two have grown apart, that you don't understand her ambitions." "What about the plan to frame me?" Monica's eyes widened. "How did you—" "I know about the harassment allegations. I know about trying to get me fired. What I want to know is your part in it." "It wasn't my idea," Monica said quickly. "Evan suggested it. He said if they could prove you were unstable, the divorce would be easier. And you agreed to help. Lila's my friend. She asked me to back up her story, to say I'd witnessed you making inappropriate comments about women at company parties. I felt a cold rage building in my chest, but I kept my voice level. And you were going to lie under oath. I didn't want to, but Lila said if I helped her, she'd put in a good word for me with the partners. I'm up for promotion, and you were willing to destroy an innocent man's life for a promotion. Monica started crying. Mascara ran down her cheeks in black streams. I'm sorry, Garrett, I really am. But you don't understand the pressure I'm under. My student loans, my rent, my car payments. I need that promotion. Well, here's the thing, Monica. I'm going to give you a choice. I pulled out the digital recorder and set it on the bar between us. You can help me or you can go down with them, but you can't do both. What do you want me to do? I want you to keep being Lila's friend. Keep listening to her plans. Keep me informed. And when the time comes, I want you to choose the right side. And if I don't? I smiled. Then you'll find out just how good I still am at investigative journalism. I wonder what your boss would think if he knew about your expense account irregularities. Monica's face went white. You know about that? I know about a lot of things. The question is, are you going to help me, or are you going to keep helping them? She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her reflection in the mirror behind the bar. Finally, she nodded. What do you need me to do? Over the next 2 weeks, Monica proved to be a valuable source of information. She told me about Lila and Evan's plans to take a romantic weekend trip to Boston. She warned me when they were planning to plant evidence in my office at the marina. Most importantly, she told me about the timeline for their harassment allegations. They're planning to file the complaints next week, she said during one of our clandestine meetings at Murphy's. Lila wants to get ahead of any divorce proceedings. Who else is involved? There's a woman named Jennifer Walsh. She used to work at the marina but got fired last year for stealing from the cash register. Evan tracked her down and offered her money to say you made unwanted advances. I knew Jennifer. She'd been trouble from day one, showing up late, arguing with customers, and finally, as Monica mentioned, helping herself to the petty cash. But she'd been desperate for work, and I'd given her a chance. This was how she was repaying that kindness. How much is Evan paying her? $5,000. That's a lot of money for a lie. Evan's got plenty of money. His father's been funding this whole thing. That was interesting. I'd assumed this was just a case of two people having an affair, but if Evan's family was involved, it meant they were serious about destroying me completely. What about the physical evidence they mentioned? Lila's been saving text messages, fake ones, made to look like they came from you. Evan's got a friend who's good with computers. And you're okay with all of this? Monica looked uncomfortable. I told you, I need that promotion. What if I told you there was another way to get it? What do you mean? I leaned closer, lowering my voice. What if I told you that Lila's been lying to you about more than just the affair? What kind of lies? The kind that could get you both fired, the kind that could land you in prison. Monica's eyes widened. What are you talking about? I've been doing some research into Hartwell and Associates' recent campaigns, particularly the ones Lila's been claiming credit for. Interesting thing about the Morrison Industries account, the one that got her promoted last year. What about it? The winning proposal was almost identical to a campaign pitch that a small firm in Boston submitted to Morrison 6 months earlier. The Boston firm didn't get the contract, but somehow their ideas ended up in Lila's presentation. Monica's face went pale. You're saying she stole it? I'm saying someone with access to Morrison's files might have shared information they shouldn't have shared. Someone who knew about the competing proposals. But that would be corporate espionage, theft of intellectual property, the kind of thing that carries serious penalties. Monica was quiet for a long moment. You can prove this? I've got emails, phone records, financial transactions. The question is, do you want to go down with her, or do you want to save yourself? What do you want me to do? I want you to help me give them exactly what they deserve. The plan came together beautifully. On the Thursday before our game night, I made my move. First, I visited Jennifer Walsh at her new job, a coffee shop in South Portland. She was working the morning shift, looking tired and resentful. When I walked in, her face went white. We need to talk, I said. I don't have anything to say to you. That's funny because I heard you have a lot to say to the harbor master next week. Jennifer's hand shook as she poured coffee for the customer ahead of me. When the shop was empty, she came around the counter. Look, Garrett, I'm sorry about what happened at the marina, but nothing. You stole money from the register and I fired you. That's the end of the story. Evan said you harassed me, said you made inappropriate comments. Evan's paying you to lie, $5,000, right? Her face confirmed it before her words did. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out a small digital recorder, not the one Cap had given me, but a new one I'd bought specifically for this conversation. Here's what's going to happen, Jennifer. You're going to tell me exactly what Evan asked you to do, and you're going to tell me how much he's paying you. Then you're going to call him and tell him you've changed your mind. And if I don't, then I'm going to have a conversation with your new boss about why you really left your last job. I'm also going to have a conversation with the police about the money you stole. Statute of limitations hasn't run out yet. It took 20 minutes, but Jennifer told me everything. The fake harassment story, the coaching sessions with Evan, the promise of $5,000 once the complaints were filed. She even called Evan with me listening and told him she was backing out. You can't do this to me, Evan said over the phone. We had a deal. The deal's off, Jennifer said, reading from the script I'd written for her. I'm not going to prison for you. Next, I visited Lila's office. She was in a meeting, so I waited in the lobby until she came out. When she saw me, she looked surprised, but not alarmed. Garrett, what are you doing here? I brought you lunch, I said, holding up a bag from her favorite deli. Thought we could eat together. That's sweet, but I'm really busy today. It'll just take a few minutes, please? She looked around the lobby, probably worried about appearances, then nodded. Okay, but just for a few minutes. We went to her office, a corner space with windows overlooking the harbor. I'd been here dozens of times over the years, but today I was seeing it with new eyes. The expensive furniture, the awards on the walls, the photos of her with various clients and colleagues, photos that didn't include me. So, what's the occasion? She asked, unpacking the sandwich I'd brought her. No occasion. I just realized we haven't been spending much time together lately. I miss you. For a moment, something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or regret. But it passed quickly. I miss you too, she said. But you know how demanding work can be. Speaking of work, how's the Henderson account coming along? Fine. Challenging, but fine. I'm sure. Must be nice working so closely with Evan on it. Her hand froze halfway to her mouth. What do you mean? Nothing. Just that it's good to have a reliable partner on difficult projects. She finished her sandwich in silence, checking her phone every few minutes. Finally, she stood up. I really need to get back to work. Of course. Oh, I almost forgot. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a flash drive. I found this in our home office. It has your name on it. Thought you might need it. Lila took the flash drive, turning it over in her hands. I don't remember this. Maybe it's an old backup. You should probably check it. Make sure there's nothing important on it. I will. Thanks. I kissed her cheek and left. 3 hours later, Monica called me. Lila's been fired, she said, her voice shaking. What happened? She opened that flash drive you gave her. It had evidence of the Morrison Industries theft. Her boss called her into his office an hour ago. Security escorted her out of the building. That's terrible, I said, trying to keep the satisfaction out of my voice. Garrett, there's something else. Lila knows you're behind this. She's furious. She's talking about destroying you. Let her talk. I'm serious. She's called Evan. They're planning something for tomorrow night. Game night? Yes. They want to humiliate you in front of your friends, make you look unstable. Well, I said, that should be interesting. Game night arrived with all the inevitability of a hurricane. I spent the afternoon preparing, going over my notes, checking my evidence, making sure everything was in place. Cap stopped by the marina around 5 o'clock. You sure about this? He asked. I'm sure. Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back. Your marriage is over. Your life as you know it is over. My life as I know it has been over for 4 months. I'm just making it official. Cap nodded. Fair enough. You need backup tonight? I can handle it. I'll be at Murphy's if you change your mind. Jules is planning to have the place packed tonight. Word's gotten around that something big is going down. How did word get around? Cap smiled. Small town. People talk. At 7 o'clock, our guests started arriving. Jim and Rebecca came first, bringing wine and nervous energy. They'd heard about Lila getting fired, though they didn't know the details. Monica arrived next, looking like she was heading to her own execution. Finally, Evan showed up, wearing his usual smug expression and an expensive shirt that probably cost more than most people made in a week. Lila was already home, having spent the day making phone calls and, I assumed, plotting my destruction. She'd changed clothes 3 times, finally settling on a black dress that made her look like she was attending a funeral, which, in a way, she was. We made small talk for the first hour: the weather, the upcoming election, Jim's new job, Rebecca's mother's hip surgery, normal conversation between normal people living normal lives. But there was tension in the air, thick as fog rolling in from the harbor. Monica kept checking her phone, Evan kept glancing at Lila, and Lila kept watching me with those green eyes that had once made me forget my own name. By 9 o'clock, we were all sufficiently lubricated with alcohol. That's when Lila made her move. "You know what, everyone?" she said, raising her wine glass with theatrical flourish. "If I could turn back time, I'd never marry Garrett." The laughter that followed was forced and uncomfortable, but it was exactly the opening I'd been waiting for. "Finally," I said, setting down my beer with deliberate calm, something we agree on. The room went quiet. You could have heard a pin drop in our suddenly silent condo. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the manila envelope. Thick, heavy, full of secrets that were about to see the light. "Garrett," Lila said, her voice suddenly uncertain. "What are you doing?" I opened the envelope and spread its contents across our mahogany dining table. Screenshots of text messages, photos taken with a telephoto lens, bank records showing payments to Jennifer Walsh, email printouts detailing the Morrison Industries theft. Monica's face went white as fresh snow. Evan's perfect smile crumbled like a sandcastle at high tide. "These are interesting," I said, picking up one of the text message printouts. "Especially this one from last Tuesday. Can't wait to feel you inside me again, baby. Garrett's working late at the marina." "That's your number, Lila." And that's Evan's phone receiving it. Rebecca gasped audibly. Jim muttered something that sounded like, "Holy crap." Lila's wine glass slipped from her suddenly nerveless fingers, shattering against our hardwood floor in an explosion of red liquid and crystal shards. "Where did you get those?" Evan demanded, but his voice cracked like a teenager asking for his first date. I smiled at him. Not a nice smile, the kind of smile a predator gives its prey just before the final strike. "Oh, this is just the warm-up act," I said, gathering the papers back into a neat pile. "You'll want to stick around for the main event." And that's when I really began to destroy them. 4 months, I said, standing up from the table and beginning to pace around the room like a prosecutor addressing a jury. 4 months you've been planning this. The affair was just the beginning, wasn't it, Lila? My wife sat frozen in her chair, mascara beginning to run down her cheeks. "Garrett, please." "Please what? Please don't tell our friends how you've been spreading your legs for your coworker in $20 motel rooms? Please don't mention how you were planning to frame me for harassment?" Evan started to stand. "Now wait just a minute." "Sit down," I said, my voice carrying the kind of authority I'd learned during my years as a journalist. "You'll get your turn." To my surprise, he sat. I pulled out the digital recorder Cap had given me and set it on the table. "This is a conversation between Lila and Evan, recorded 6 days ago outside the marina where I work. The marina where they sat in his BMW, planning my destruction." I pressed play. Lila's voice filled the room. "We need to be more careful. Garrett's been asking questions. Evan, about what? About my schedule, about work. He called Henderson Industries yesterday." Our friends listened in stunned silence as the recording played out. The plan to frame me, the fake harassment allegations, the bribery of Jennifer Walsh. When it ended, the room was so quiet you could hear the harbor fog rolling against our windows. "That's not all," I continued. "Monica, would you like to tell everyone about your role in this conspiracy?" Monica looked like she was going to be sick. "Garrett, you promised." "I promised I'd give you a choice. You chose to help them, so now everyone gets to know." I pulled out another document. "This is a sworn statement from Jennifer Walsh, detailing how Evan Merrick offered her $5,000 to file false harassment charges against me. Jennifer was smart enough to record that conversation. Evan's face had gone from pale to green. You can't prove any of this. Actually, I can prove all of it. Bank records showing the payments, phone records showing the calls, security camera footage from the Sunset Motel showing you two checking in together 17 different times over the past 4 months. I turned to face Lila directly, but the really interesting part is what you stole from your company to fund this little operation. What are you talking about? The Morrison Industries account, the one that got you promoted last year, the one based on stolen intellectual property from a competing firm in Boston. Lila's face went white. That's impossible. Is it? Because I have emails between you and someone at Morrison Industries, someone who gave you access to competing proposals in exchange for certain favors, financial favors specifically. I spread out more documents, bank statements, email printouts, phone records, embezzlement, corporate espionage, conspiracy to commit fraud. The FBI is very interested in this kind of white-collar crime. You're bluffing, Evan said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Monica, why don't you tell everyone what happened to Lila today? Monica looked around the table like a trapped animal. She was fired. For what? For theft of intellectual property. And what did her boss say when he fired her? That they were considering criminal charges. The room erupted. Jim started asking questions. Rebecca demanded to know if any of this was true. Evan began making excuses, claiming he'd been manipulated. And Lila just sat there, staring at the wreckage of her carefully constructed lies. There's more, I said, and everyone fell silent again. Evan, would you like to tell everyone about your father's involvement in this scheme? Evan's face went from green to gray. My father doesn't know anything about this. Really? Because I have bank records showing payments from Merrick Automotive to Jennifer Walsh. I also have phone records showing multiple calls between you and your father's attorney. Seems like Daddy was planning to help you frame me for harassment and then sue me for emotional distress. That's not true. We'll let the police sort out what's true and what isn't. I walked over to the window and looked out at the harbor. The fog was thick now, obscuring the lights of the boats at anchor. When I turned back to the room, everyone was staring at me. Here's what's going to happen, I said. Lila, you're going to pack your things and get out of my home. Tonight. Evan, you're going to stay away from both of us, or I'm going to release everything I have to the police and the media. Monica, you're going to find yourself a good lawyer, because when the FBI starts investigating the Morrison Industries case, your name is going to come up. Garrett, Lila said, her voice barely above a whisper. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can what? Pretend you didn't try to destroy my life? Pretend you didn't plan to send me to prison for crimes I didn't commit? I shook my head. If you could turn back time, maybe you'd make different choices. But you can't, and neither can I. I walked to the front door and opened it. Game night's over, everyone out. Jim and Rebecca left quickly, whispering to each other as they headed for the elevator. Monica followed, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Evan tried to say something to Lila, but she just stared at the table, surrounded by the evidence of her betrayal. Finally, it was just the two of us. I loved you, she said without looking up. No, I replied. You loved what I could give you. You loved the idea of being married. But you never loved me. She gathered up her purse and headed for the bedroom to pack. 20 minutes later, she was gone, leaving behind only the lingering scent of her perfume and the shattered remains of our marriage. I poured myself a drink and sat in my chair, looking out at the fog-shrouded harbor. Tomorrow, there would be consequences. Legal proceedings, investigations, the messy business of divorce. But tonight, for the first time in 4 months, I was alone in my own home, surrounded by the truth instead of lies, and that felt like victory.